The subject of American politics, with me now to reflect on an extraordinary few days for Donald Trump is presidential historian Dr. Laura Ellen Smith. Very good to talk to you today. It's not the first time that an attempted assassination of a president has rocked a political campaign in America, is it? But we've seen calls overnight from Biden to calm the tone. Political campaign ads have been pulled. What do you make of what's happened in the last 48 hours?
Well, it's really been shocking in so many respects. Obviously, as you said, Biden made a rare Oval Office appearance last night, and he really made this call for unity, looking very presidential. It was a good speech by the standards that have been set for Biden, the expectations. He had a couple of fumbles, a couple of stutters, but he said what needed to be said in a presidential Oval Office setting, this call for unity. But how long that lasts, especially with the Republican National Convention underway, is certainly questionable.
What impact do you think what happened on Saturday is going to have on the election campaign?
I think that what we're seeing in the immediate after effect, of course, it's been a long July, let alone all the way through November. But what we're seeing in the short term is certainly this bringing together, this sense of Republicans feeling very strongly, even when some had really felt disillusioned by Trump at this point, to go to the polls. And to, interestingly, in contrast to the Democrats' message of, for the sake of democracy, you need to vote, you need to support President Biden. Some Republicans may actually now feel that they need to go to the polls because they are protecting their right of free speech and their rights under the First Amendment to support Donald Trump. So you're going to see an interesting contrast going on.
It has taken attention away from Joe Biden, though, hasn't it? I mean, all of last week, it seemed to be all that we were reporting on were the concerns about his ability to hold on to his faculties.
Yes, it has done that. I think the RNC was invariably going to take some attention away from him anyway. The Democrats and Biden in particular just had to sort of hang on through the next news cycle, which seemed to, as you say, last a long time from the debate. However, Donald Trump has also had this sort of three sets of good luck come his way. Quite literally dodging a bullet is obviously Saturday. But even before that, he was supposed to receive sentencing on his hush money trial in New York, where he received a guilty verdict. That was supposed to happen July 11th, and of course it didn't, because of the Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity has thrown things really up into question, into the air. And we've seen more consequences of that just this afternoon with one of his cases, the classified documents case, being thrown out by Judge Eileen Cannon.
It's extraordinary this case has been thrown out, hasn't it? A clear victory for Trump. I mean, we're looking at these images. I mean, there is no doubt that documents were being stored at Mar-a-Lago.
Yes. It brings into light all of these questions that are known unknowns, if you like, from the Supreme Court decision in terms of how to go forward. Judge Eileen Cannon was obviously appointed by Donald Trump, had received questions before about whether it was appropriate for her to continue with the case, whether she should recuse herself. She did not. She had made some interesting decisions regarding the case, that it was clear it wasn't going to come to court before the election. And so now, by throwing it out altogether, by using that ultimate power, it's a question as to whether that's going to stand. But it's certainly not going to see the inside of a courthouse before November.
The calls for calm that we've had, I mean, in the last hour or so, President Trump has responded to this, saying in very clear terms that he hopes all of the other court cases will be thrown out as well. But Biden overnight trying to talk about changing rhetoric and calling for calm. Do you think we will see a change in rhetoric from Donald Trump, perhaps?
A change in rhetoric for Donald Trump. I think his reaction on Truth Social immediately after the incident was interesting. Obviously, we don't know whether he wrote some of those things. There are some things that are very characteristic of him, for example, invoking God and sort of saying that he feels protected and these sorts of things. However, you're right in the sense that we did see a shift in terms of him actually saying that he thanks the intelligence services, that he's grateful that they were there to protect him. And that obviously contrasts quite deeply with what he said during his presidency when he felt like there was, in his words, quote, a witch hunt against him by the intelligence services. So you do see some changes. How long that will last and whether that sort of, again, it goes into the sense of unity. there is so much vitriol, and this isn't new, right? If you think about 30 years, my students, their entire lifetime, they really know nothing but hyper-partisanship, that and unfortunately an unstable economy. So there's a lot of cynicism and a lot of disillusionment. So it's hard to see some unifying aspect coming forward. Apart from, I will say, the last assassination attempt on a president, Ronald Reagan, 1981. The good thing that came from that was actually focus on policy. So it took a long time, 1993 and 1994, there were two gun laws that were passed. One of them had a sunset clause that was a federal assault weapons ban. So we have to see whether this will come to policy or whether it's going to go back to vitriolic rhetoric.
We certainly we'll have to wait and see. We've got quite a few months to go on it all. Dr. Laura Ellen Smith, presidential historian, great to talk to you today. Thanks a lot for joining us from Folkestone.
Thank you for having me.